I think we should dive in and get started on all things wonderful. I'm Susan Lindner from the Innovation Storyteller Show and my company, Innovation Storytellers. But we are here today under the auspices of Black NSA and the Black NSA $1 Million Mastermind. There's always trying to give you new and improved ways of making more money as a speaker, and to Norm's point, getting off the hamster wheel of endlessly searching for gig after gig after gig. And so I'm honored to have one of Black NSA's, I would say, senior statesmen joining us tonight to talk to us a little bit about how to create your own events so that you are not reliant endlessly on meeting planners, bureaus, and your own gumption to get you the gigs that you want by hosting your own events. Now, for those of you who don't know Norm, I want to tell you a little bit about Norm. He is one of the most engaging and content-rich customer transformation and leadership keynoters in the world. He is also a consultant to big Fortune 500 companies, and he delivers transformational wisdom when working with his clients and audiences around the globe. His interactive, entertainingly, and conversational style of sharing knowledge makes for invigorating sessions, even with the most in-depth content. And in case you think Norm is just local to California, you would be wrong. He has spoken to audiences in all 50 states and foreign countries, including Russia, Canada, Spain, Costa Rica, Finland, England, Germany, Bahrain, Kuwait, and other Middle Eastern countries. He is also an entrepreneur at heart, having owned an award-winning restaurant, a health food store, and an animal hospital. Norm is a sage with real-world experience working with customers and the public. He is also the co-author of The Highly Paid Expert and his new book, Alchemy: How to Create Transformational Customer Experiences That Create Clients for Life. And so I just am so honored to welcome Norm back to our Black NSA stage to share more of his own wisdom with us. So Norm, I'm going to turn it over to you without any further ado.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to have to make sure I use that introduction everywhere I go. That was wonderful. Thank you. Let me tell you how this all started, and you may be able to relate to why I am going to lead this session. Have you ever been in a place where somebody came to you and said, look, we don't need you anymore? And you had given that group, company, organization your heart and soul, and this revelation that they provided you was out of the blue. That ever happened to any of you? I bet you there are moments where all of a sudden you found out how valued you were to that particular person or organization. I had that experience 33 years ago. This association I had been working with for 17 years. I ended up being the board president. The executive director thought I wanted their job. I didn't. I actually saved her job. And for some reason, and she wasn't a great people person, she came up to me and said, look, we're not going to use you anymore this summer for our programs. And of course, I was devastated because I had spent the last 16 years of my summers helping them and working with them and getting paid. And so I was devastated. And instead of being devastated, I realized I had to eat. So the amazing thing is, what I'm going to share with you is how I took $750, because that's what I was getting paid and asking for, and turned it into millions of dollars to flow through my business. And so that's the perspective I want you to have, because at the end of this, I will give you an opportunity to create your event. And I want you to understand how I ended up in this place. And I also want you to be able to see with a different set of eyes. I know, like me, there's lots of times I will get on a workshop, I will sit, I will listen, get some great information, and not take any action at all. And what I want you to understand is that as a member of Black NSA, our ultimate goal is to make sure you have a long-term career. And so for that to happen, you have to recognize that it cannot just be getting up on the stage, because the pandemic that we just experienced, there could be another one. So I'm going to share some stuff with you. At the end or in the middle, I'll give you an opportunity to ask questions. I will also present my perspective. I'm not here to battle with you. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. This will be my experience, and I hope you can learn from it. And so I'm going to share my screen and just go through my presentation. At any time you need some clarification, Susan, if you want to stop me to take care of some of the questions, feel free.
I'll
At the
monitor.
end of
Absolutely.
this, we'll talk about how you can get a copy of this presentation, or at least the slides, and then you'll be able to figure out what you need to do with it after, okay? So let's get started, and let's go with this one. So you all can see my screen, correct? Nod your head.
Yes,
There
we
we
can.
go.
Absolutely.
All right, great. So you know that you're here because I am big on signature events. And the reason why I am big on those events is I just told you. You heard Susan talk about my career, my speaking career. I also should let you know that bragging rights, I was the first Black CSP. I have had a non-traditional career. And by that, what I mean is I really don't have a demo video and I don't have a website. And my business has pretty much come from referral, which means I do a pretty good job and then they tell other people, and that's the way my business has come to me. I'm spending more time now having fun, consulting, and developing relationships. And so that's where I come from. Let me tell you why I think it's important for you to think about your own signature event. Especially if you're my age and you've been around a while, you realize we've gone through a couple of recessions, 9/11, the pandemic, and a whole bunch of other things where, as a speaker, our income has been impacted. So if you get up on the stage and people are loving you, God bless you. I'm glad for you. But you need to know that you are going to face some challenges in the future. And my hope is that you will have a diversified business model that allows you to survive and thrive when it happens again. Because those of us who've been around, we know something's going to come our way. So do me a favor. In the chat, here's what I want you to write for me. Which one of these were you impacted by as a speaker? Some of us who are new weren't around for the first recession back in 90-something. Some of us who are new may not have been around for 9/11. So do me a favor, in that chat, go ahead and just write down which one of these has impacted you. You notice I added bias and I also added topics. Sometimes our flavor or our topic is not the flavor of the month or the flavor of the year. So maybe you were popular one year and then the next year they said, nah, we're into this now. So go ahead, toss that in the chat. What was the one that impacted your business the most? Those of us who've been around a long time, we could probably put all of them. I know I would. So those are just some things to be aware of that impact any speaking business. Now, after you get that in the chat, here's the concept I want you to get. And one of the reasons why I am such a big proponent of having a signature event. And let me explain. A signature event, well, actually, we'll get to that later on. The speaking business to me is like Sisyphus. And for those of you not aware of the story, it's rolling the rock up the hill and you get to the top and guess what? That sucker comes back down and you've got to roll it back up. And to me, that is kind of like the speaking business. You jump through the hoops. We get the meeting committee, the planners to pick us. We go and give a great presentation and then we got to start all over again with another group. And I don't care where you are in this business, there are times when you feel like, I've got to go through this again. Don't people know me well enough that they just pick me? Well, if you're there, great. If not, I want you to understand this is the way it's been for the last 45 years of my speaking career, is I can go out and do a bang up job. You can too. And guess what? The next group has no idea who you are. And what do you have to do? You got to roll that rock up the hill and convince them to pick you. And there will be moments, obviously, when you are in a groove, when people are just loving you, your name is on everybody's lips. And guess what happens? 2 years later, you start all over again. So just understand, to me, that is the Sisyphus speaking syndrome. It happens to all of us. And the secret is to not just play this particular game. So the other part is about signature events. I want you to get rid of this. These are some of the myths, These are some of the things people use as excuses for not expanding in their business model. And I'm going to give you some solutions, some truths about them, because I've gone through all of them. We'll talk about where you can hold an event where it doesn't cost you an arm, a leg. We'll talk about if you know enough. We're going to address all these. And if there's something that's not up on this list, do me a favor. Interrupt me, and I'll give you a solution, a recommendation, some way to get past what may be holding you back from running your own signature event, okay? The other thing is this. I want us to be thinking about who we are as professional speakers. One of the things I have heard, especially speakers who are newer, not newer to NSA, but new, who sometimes doubt who they are, what they have to offer, if they've been speaking long enough. And what I will tell you is it doesn't necessarily have to be the length of time you've been speaking. It is more about the quality and the content, the quality of your content, your presentation style, what the market needs at that moment. You and I have watched AI explode over the last 2 or 3 years. It's been around longer than that, but the last 2 or 3 years, it has become the hot topic or one of the hot topics. Now think about all the people who spent their time learning about AI 8 years ago, 9 years ago, 10 years ago, thinking, oh, nobody wants to hear about this. Well, right now they're having their moment. They're having their flavor of the month and probably a flavor of a couple of years. That is their superpower right now. Their topic has become the one everybody wants to talk about. So you may not be the superstar at the moment, but doesn't mean your topic isn't going to find its day, find its time. So just keep that in mind. Your superpower doesn't always have to be what's popular. A couple of years ago with the pandemic and after the pandemic, we were talking about retention. How do we keep good people? How do we keep the talent we have? How do we draw or attract the talent to us? Now, there have been people in human resources talking about the value of talent, people for years, but they found their moment a couple of years ago. So you may think right now, I don't have a superpower. What I want you to know is everybody has a superpower. They have a great topic, and maybe it's not in fashion right now, but that doesn't mean it's any less value than somebody else's. So there are 3 pieces about signature events. One is it's a place for you to showcase your superpower. And if it's not popular, guess what? You can make it popular by having an event. Second piece is you have a specific perspective that is different than everybody else's. And if it isn't, it should be. The last thing we need is another leadership speaker getting up and talking about, these are the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Somebody's already got that covered. So look at yourself and say, what's the perspective I can provide for any event I want to put on? And the third is, what's your flavor? Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, I don't have a video, don't have a website. My flavor is I get my business by referrals. And the reason why is, guess what? That means that's a warm lead, somebody coming to me and saying, hey, we've got this challenge, can you? And we have a conversation. It lets me decide if that's somebody I want to work with. The other thing, if you think about it, they're coming to me, asking me to work with them instead of me going, please, please pick me. So my flavor is I don't want to be like everybody else. I don't want the website. I don't want, nothing wrong with it. It's just there's so many of you who are so much better at me on camera and on websites. And if you had been here in the earlier session, they showed me a picture of me on somebody else's website that's ghastly. That's 25 years old when I had a lot more hair. But that's my flavor. I talk about it all the time. You get to decide what is your flavor when you put on your own event. You get to incorporate it into the presentation with your client or your group of people you're working with. So 3 things. What's your superpower? Remember, you have a perspective that is different than somebody else's, and it should be. And then you get to add your own special flavor. I'll give you another example of what I mean by that. Right here, you're looking at a wolf dog. We won't mention that in public, but same animal right here. You will notice on the left side, that is just a regular acrylic drawing of Wildo. She's my wolf. On the right-hand side, guess what? Same animal, different format or different method of me drawing her. When I talk about flavor, somebody might like the left side over the right side. The other thing is this. Somebody might like the more creative side. Same animal. There she is, what she looks like normally on the right-hand side. She's a little older now, but you can see if we go back, same animal, 3 different versions. Same topic, 3 different versions. When I talk about flavor, that's what I'm trying to get you to see. What kind of flavor will you add to your event on the topic you are so well versed in? Okay. Any questions so far about that? Nope. All right, I'll keep going on then. Now, here's the other piece. How do we provide that opportunity for people to learn about us? When I say flavor, you can also think about the ice cream store that has 27 or 37. I can't remember what the number is, but there are different ways we can showcase our talents. We are used to going to the conference. Influence is an example of a conference. A boot camp is an example that some of you may have gone to. A master class, which is online, or it can be a gathering someplace where all you're going to do is just focus on one particular topic. There are different ways for you to create your signature event. It doesn't have to be like a conference with 500 people, because that's scary for some people. The cost, the venue, all those things, valid concerns. So you have options right here of how you can create a signature event and showcase your talent, your flavor, your perspective. My preference is always based on what my topic is. So if I have a topic and I really want to go deep, I know a conference setting isn't going to work for me because there's too many people there, where I know I have to play to the, I hate to say it, lowest common denominator. So an intensive might be the best way for me to work. Now, if you're trying to figure out what does each one of these mean when it comes to the structure, this is the definitions. We're not going to go through all of them. At the end, I'll, like I mentioned before, I'll give you a way to get this, or you can just look it up online. But this is the definition for each one. And if you were to go ahead and read it quickly, you would realize that each one has its specific advantages, disadvantages, based on what you're trying to offer. Okay. I know for me, the best ones that work when I'm presenting a specific topic is always the smaller ones, because ultimately I have more time with the audience. I get to develop a better connection, and ultimately I get brought in based on the relationship I have established in the time we spent together. One of the biggest frustrations, let me go back here, and you may have experienced this, especially when you go to a conference where the presenter or presenters have promoted the opportunity to get next to them, to meet them, to interact with them. And what happens as soon as they're done doing their pitch, or they walk off the stage, you can't find them. They are whisked away. And so this intimacy that you thought was going to be created, and when I say intimacy, I'm talking about professional and topic wise, the intimacy that they have promoted that you would receive or be allowed to access doesn't take place. It's kind of like a bait and switch. Come to my event, come to my event, come meet me, come meet me. Oh, I'm done speaking, I gotta go, or I'm over here, or guess what? You didn't buy from me, so I don't have time for you. That happens a lot at big conferences, and people leave disappointed because they were expecting to have that opportunity to interact with the presenter or presenters. Now, if it's a smaller setting, intensive, symposium, masterclass, that probably can happen. In fact, I would encourage you to have that happen, because that's the perfect venue to get one-on-one time. And if you're trying to offer consulting services after, you can have the time to have a conversation, and there won't be a line of 300 people waiting to talk to you. It'll be a smaller group. So for me, that's one of the reasons why I like the smaller settings for my events, is because I know when I talk to somebody, I'm going to develop a relationship, and I'll be able to work with them on a deeper level. All right, going back, those are the definitions. Here's the other thing. Right now in the chat, do me a favor, write down what you believe your flavor is. Which one of these resonates with you? Which one, if you were going to create your own signature event, would work for you? You'd go, I want to interact with my clients, these delegates, in this format. So do me a favor, take a minute, or not even a minute, take 30 seconds, put in the chat And you can have more than one. As I mentioned earlier, I have more than one. And here's the reason why. I get bored doing the same thing over and over. How many of you get bored doing the same thing over and over? I know I do. It's like, okay, this is going to be a challenge for me. As much as I want to get my material out and work with people, I also have to make sure that there's that challenge for me. Um, Otherwise, I don't want to say I'm phoning it in, but boy, there's a difference when it's new for me. Okay. What's your flavor? Okay. I can't look at this, can I? Somebody, Susan, can you tell me some of the things they put in there just for their flavors, just so I'll
Oh,
know?
yeah. So we have master classes, intensive and boot camps, workshops, mastermind master classes, um, retreats and workshops, intensives, all of the good stuff that you listed on your list.
Yeah, I think it sounds like, and I could be wrong, a lot of you are looking for the more intimate kind of gathering. And I would tell you that unless you're some $50,000 stage conference speaker, that's probably the best way for you to go. And the reason why is because ultimately the goal is not just to put on your event, the goal is to create income. And you create the income so you have a long-term career. And I think the more intimate you are with your offerings, the better the return is going to be. So thank you for sharing your flavors with me. Now, the
Norm,
second,
can I just ask a question? One of our participants is asking about pricing. Is that something you want to cover now or a little bit later? Like how we
I
think
will.
differently
I
about
am going to cover that a little bit later.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Because it definitely plays into what you offer. So it brings me up to focus, because one of the things I always have to struggle with is focus. That commercial, the cartoon about the dog and all of a sudden the squirrel. Well, very easy for me to behave like that, because there are so many things I want to provide for my clients. There's so many things I want to do in the world. There's so many things that are just, they sound like they're fun. So when I go to put on an event, I always have to remember, what is the focus? What is the focus? I will tell you about the longest program I have going on right now. We are going to enter our 33rd year. Remember at the beginning, for those of you who were there, who I told you about the person who came to me and said, look, we're done with you. We're not going to use you anymore. I have been working at their leadership camp for 17 years. So what did I do? I went and started my own. I took the $750 they didn't want to pay me, and the personal animosity she had towards me calling her on her stuff. And instead of just staying angry, I said, wait a second, I know all this. These people aren't happy with this. Let me create my own. And because of that, that was the first signature event I created. We're about to go into our 33rd year. We've probably served over 30,000 delegates, people. And it was the first one, and it probably got the most focus because I was devastated, I was shocked, but more importantly, I knew I had the skills to put it on. And so it was kind of like, if I focus on this and it works, what did I learn from it so I can repeat it in a different setting? So I will tell you, the thing about focus is when you pick one particular flavor, it makes it so much easier to make it successful. I listed all those opportunities. What I would encourage you to do is, and we'll get to this, pick one and say, this is the one I'm going to do first, and get it right. And what can I learn from it? And then if you want to try another modality, we go from there. So 3 pieces I want you to think about. Up here, you will, and one of the things you should know, I am an artist, I guess. Some days I am, some days I'm just a guy with some paint. And so you'll see that in my presentation, I'm just using my pictures because guess what? I don't have to pay anybody. They're mine and I like them. So one of the things about this piece right now is a representation of what you can offer. It is a canvas. I've added some paint. But the most important part is when you're thinking about your signature event, I think there are 3 focuses you have to figure out what you're going to provide. And the 3 are, one is, as a result of attending your signature event, will there be a transformation? After I attend your 1 day, 3 days, 4 weeks, whatever it is, Are you going to make sure there's a transformation that takes place? How many of you have ever been to an event and you could experience the transformation taking place in the room? You could see people who thought like this, who ended up thinking like this. You saw people who had more confidence. You saw delegates who did something they thought they couldn't do before, or they had an idea that they never dreamed of would work in their business or their life. You have witnessed what is transformational. You've seen people leave going, I feel I can take on the world. That is one aspect of what you can offer with a signature event. And this is just a representation of green to a butterfly. Let's go one to the next piece. Bunch of ingredients. I don't know about you. How many of you love seafood? I grew up on the East Coast, and let me tell you, on the West Coast, frustrated as heck because guess what? Seafood here is fish. Not a lot of great clams, crabs, whatever. Seafood on the East Coast, and any of you on the East Coast, you know, seafood on the East Coast is way different than seafood on the West Coast. But guess what? I did. I got these ingredients. I was cooking for friends here because you also know I like to cook because I had a restaurant. This is the second piece you can offer with your signature event. You get these elements together, and then you put them together. And as a result of putting them together and adding your special flavor, you get a result. So you can promise a result for anyone who attends your signature event. You give me these ingredients, guess what the result is? Cioppino. If I go to your signature event, what's the result I walk away with? Will I be a better public speaker? Will I be able to set goals? Will I be a better partner to my mate? Will I be a better manager for the talent in my office? What's the result you are going to promise? So far, two things. You can provide a transformation with a signature event, and you can provide results. If you attend this, you will leave with this. You will be better, smarter, more insightful, more aware. So two things so far, transformations you can promise and results. Third piece, and this is probably the one that resonates more with me, is I'm about experiences. What experience can I create so that when it is over, you'll remember what we taught you, you'll remember what you learned, and that experience will be the anchor that will help you take and implement what you just experienced. So in these drawings, you can experience love, you can experience a going to a beach and having a retreat on the beach and people experiencing that. The last piece is Thanksgiving. For those of you who've been with your family during Thanksgiving, you know that is an experience. Good, bad, and in the middle. What I know is what people love as we get older are better experiences. One of the reasons why Tony Robbins, I'll use him as an example, does the fire walk, because that is an experience that you will remember forever. I walked across some coals. Oh my goodness. I never thought I could. Boom, you've got an experience forever. Some groups, sometimes what they'll do is they will, as a team builder, they will get bikes, put them together as a group, and then donate them to the charity. But they have the young person there to receive the bike. This kid who doesn't have a bike gets the bike, is flabbergasted, starts to cry, people get emotional, and they remember that experience of their offsite. So 3 different ways, things you can incorporate into your signature events. It can be transformation provided, it can be a result, and it can be an experience. Now, no one says you have to only have one. You can have all 3. What I will tell you though is this, is make sure they relate to each other. So many events I've been to where there is no correlation between what took place on the first day and on the last day. And so when you're creating a signature event, know what you want as a result. Do I want them to have a transformation? Do I want them to walk away with results, solutions to their problems? And do I want them to leave talking about the experience? Because sometimes they can compete with each other. The other thing is this: if you confuse your attendees, some will walk away talking about, I don't feel like I changed. And someone would walk away going, oh my God, I feel so much better about myself. If you are not clear in what you're offering, and everyone walks away with a different message or different feeling, then it's very hard for them to go and explain to others. And then someone follow up and say, hey, I thought you said you're about making me a better speaker. This person says they had a great time because they built friendships with other people. Those are two different messages. So more congruency with the way you structure your curriculum and what your desired outcome is will help you be more successful. Any questions so far? Is this helping? Any questions? Any questions at all? Just interrupt because I'm going to keep talking. All right. Here's the next piece. In the chat, do me a favor. Which one resonates with you? If you were going to put on and create your own signature event, what would you focus on? Transformation, results, or experience? Which one works best for you? I'll give you 30 seconds. Write it down, put it in there, and share with others. What is the one that you're like, that's me? I'm all about the experience. I will tell you a little thing I did with some of my clients that are part of that 33-year program. I took the decision makers, the ones who write the checks, I took them to Hawaii back in 2017. They've been with me for a couple of years, and oh my gosh, the experience we had was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars because they obviously stayed loyal to me. But more importantly, it was one of those transformations where they realized they weren't just my clients, but they were my friends. And so as a result of them seeing that, guess what? They still return to the program. So that's an example of taking all three of these, incorporating them into an event. And the signature event was, hey, Norm's taking his clients to Hawaii.
Yeah. Norm, everybody is really juiced about transformation. It seems like it is the preponderance of responses here is
Yep.
having an incredible transformation. It's nice
So
to know
let
we
me
have transformers on the call.
let me tell you the challenge with transformations. You've got to be good at it. Giving somebody information doesn't create a transformation. It just gives them more information. A transformation is when somebody says, I never thought I could do this, but now I can. So as a result of this session, my hope is at the end of this, you all say, how do I put on my signature event, Norm? How do I do what you do? How do I create my special little world? That's a transformation. And of course, the natural thing would be, you would say, is there a book? Is there a, and I would tell you, a book is just going to give you a bunch of steps. But more importantly, what makes a transformation, and you all know this, what makes a transformation is the personal side of the experience. When we go to NSA, plenty of people giving out information. Here's how you get the meeting planner to pick up the phone. We all know that. But what we love is the hallway conversations. What we love is the laughing at the bar together. What we love is going to dinner and listening to someone talk about the time that the microphone quit in the middle and what you did after. So when you're looking for a transformation, don't just look for it to be a bunch of information delivered. It is about the personal side, the human side. Okay. And I'm not surprised that transformation is the one most of us pick. Here's the other thing. One of the things I found is that you need to be in alignment with what you're providing. And what I mean by that is, if I'm all about the results, oh God, I gotta get through this workbook over the 3 days. And my group is tired because all I'm doing is bombarding them with information. How many of you have ever been someplace where all they did was give you information and you're like, hey fool, can we take a break? And the presenter was clueless. Couldn't read the audience. Couldn't see that we're squirming in our seats. Couldn't see that, hey, at this point of the day, you can't put anything in my head. They obviously weren't aligned with their audience. They couldn't see or experience what they were going through. All they knew is they've got this great information. I want to get it to you because I'm just so passionate about it. Well, love your passion, but think about my butt sitting in the seat. So one of the things about putting on your own signature event is when you're creating your side of this event, here's what I want them to walk away. I want them to feel like this. I want them to just transform and be this. What I need you to think about is the other side. Hey, I want to make that transformation happen, but I can't sit here for 6 hours. I need a break every 45 minutes. Or we need to do something fun. Or I need a chance to go absorb and write down what I just learned because there's no room left for me to take what you're going to provide next. So we have to be in alignment with who they are as people and what they're looking for. But we also have to be in alignment with what we're trying to get across with their perspective, but also knowing that, okay, I may not get the experience I want, but it's not about me, it is about them. And you have to be okay with that. There are times when I've walked out of my presentation or my events thinking, I didn't cover this. And nobody has ever come up to me and said, hey, Norm, guess what? I wish we would have spent more time here. Or why didn't you cover this? It's never happened. So make sure you're in alignment with who they are, what they can stand, what you can provide, and how you provide it so that they can receive it. Here's the next thing. And I'm not this, well, I guess, can you see this without, well, actually, it's your screen. You can figure out how to view this. This is probably the most important insight you'll get about which event you should put on, okay? So I'm going to spend a couple of minutes on it, and you can ask the questions. So there are different types of signature events. You can do a 1 day, you can do a 2 day, you can do a multi-day, which is 2 days plus. And one of the things I want you to notice is on my left-hand side where it says knowledge and information, as the arrow goes up, that is where we want to keep giving information. If you look at the bottom, you obviously see the length of the event. So let's take the first event under 1 day where it says sit and listen, single focus, you make an offer. What I want you to understand is if you were going to put on a 1 day event, you can charge a couple $100, but you have to avoid these pitfalls. And so as you go straight up the chart, you'll notice that the more information you give, you get diminishing returns. If you go all the way to the top, and this is where most presenters make their mistake, and you've seen this, you've done this, maybe I have. I want to give them so much in 1 day. And guess what happens? They leave so overwhelmed that they are paralyzed. I can't do this. I don't know where to start. In fact, if you're a first timer going to NSA, it isn't unusual for you to walk away thinking, there's so much. Where do I start? And that's a multi-day. Imagine going to an event for 1 day and somebody says, I want to give them so much information so they feel like they got their money's worth. More importantly, that's not what you want. You want to give them information so that they use what you have given them. So down below where it says sit and listen, single focus offer, focus on making sure you give them 1 or 2 points, go deep in that. And if you're going to make an offer, but make sure that when they walk away, they can say, I can now give feedback. That's all we talked about today was giving feedback and maybe recognizing personality style so I know how to deliver the feedback. If I talk about that, and then I talk about setting up the room for success, and I talk about making sure that my superiors are in on the, all that stuff is extra, and it doesn't mean you're going to achieve what you want with your 1 day event. Second thing I'll tell you about 1 day events, there's a ceiling to what you can charge. You charge a whole lot, we're expecting a whole lot, but guess what? Even if you give a whole lot, we leave going, that was not worth it. Why? Because when we shut down and stop absorbing, we blame you, not our bodies. So the other thing about a 1 day is that, and I've seen people do this, we're going to do a 1 day event and it's going to be in Massachusetts. Well, nobody's flying from California to Massachusetts or Chicago. Why? Because it costs more with our airfare, our hotel. And so if you're going to do a 1 day, then you need to realize you're probably going to draw from your local area. So just be aware of that. I've seen too many people get upset because they expected a whole lot of people to show up from outside their city, their area. And I'm like, no, nobody's coming. I wouldn't drive that far. So you go to a 2-day event. Here's the thing. If you look at the bottom, you'll see a 2-day event. If you don't give them enough information, the danger is they feel like they overpaid for 2 days. And this is all we're covering. The sweet spot is in the middle. And if you go too far, and this is a challenge for every event, is you're giving too much information that they're still, again, not going to be able to use. And so remember, more information isn't the greatest. It's information they can use and apply. And so even with a 2-day, you're tempted to give them the farm. Go to the 3-day, same problem. If you don't give them enough information, though, they feel like, oh my goodness, this is, how much am I paying for this? And then there's an expectation. If I'm going to spend 2 days, 3 days with you, I expect to interact with people. I expect to build some friendships. I expect to walk away with a plan. If I spend 3 days with you, I don't need you to upsell me again. I need you to give me something that says you and I can end our connection and I will be happy because I got what I came and paid for. That should be a no-brainer and a for sure to happen if you're having somebody spend 2 days, 3 days with you. Okay?
Norm, we have a couple of questions. Is that okay?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
So because some of our speakers are really looking for transformation, or provide transformation to their audiences, what kind of examples could you think of that might allow us to do these beautiful kinds of events virtually that would also offer a transformational experience? Is that possible?
No.
No.
No, I'm kidding. Here's what I will tell you. Sorry about that. Yeah, but if you expect someone to be transformed after an hour and a half, good luck, unless it's a very small transformation. You might have them change their perspective. That can happen. You might have them change one behavior. That's okay. But if you're expecting an incredible life-changing transformation, I think that's a challenge, only because the amount of time they have to absorb, to implement, to assess in their head what's it going to cost me to make this change? And so a lot of people, what they do is they expect this transformation to happen in a day or in a couple hours. And really, it may seem like they walk away with it, but the most important thing is if I were to ask them 4 months from now, what did she teach you? How did you change? They would go, it was good. Well, what changed? It was good. And so I think you're setting yourself up if you're expecting to change in a virtual setting, unless it's an ongoing program process. In fact, at the end, I'll be an example. I think virtual is fine, but one of the things you and I know is that it's very hard to get people to show up consistently. 2, it is very hard to get a connection because you've got this flat screen. And for me, what has worked over the decades is that transformation that I'm always looking for happens in person. And ultimately, especially now, people like in person over this stuff because we spent 2 years with this stuff. So I would tell you it can happen. Just don't expect it to be a giant transformation unless you are consistently meeting. That's the only way I've ever found where I can sit there and go, wait, you started here and I can see where you ended up. You now know how to give feedback. You now know how to plan your goals. You now know how to, as a board, create your strategic plan because we've done it incrementally. And so just be aware what you're looking for. When I said alignment, it also has to align with their delivery model. Okay, does that take care of it? Is there another one? Oh, you're on mute.
Any other examples of transformative speakers outside of Tony Robbins who you'd put in a category of transformation experts?
Well, well, yeah, I think, you could use Brene Brown. I mean, just look at who's hot. Everyone, I love this person. Why? Because they make you do something you wouldn't do before. So everyone can make someone feel transformed. Nothing wrong with that. The question is, can it stick? That's how you know somebody's transformational, is what they say to you or share with you, it sticks. Was Gandhi a transformational person? Yeah. Be the change. We all know that. So whoever you're looking for to make this transformation, my question is, what is it they're going to say to you, give, share with you that makes you remember a year from now or 6 months from now? And the further away you want that transformation to stick, the stronger that imprint has to be. If you've walked across fire, and I haven't, and I wouldn't, that will stick for you forever. You know, but you know what? If I went rafting down the white waters of Utah and I'm afraid of water, guess what? That's transformational. If I jumped out of a plane, oops, if I've jumped out of a plane and survived, that's transformational. I never thought I'm afraid of heights. So I think when you're looking at transformation, the question is, what type of transformation are you asking for? And based on what you're looking to have happen determines the longevity of it and what you have to do to make sure that it's sustained. There are plenty, here's the other thing I'll tell you. There are plenty of TikTok videos or Instagram videos. I don't know about you, but I made the mistake of looking at I have animals, looking at the ones with the animals where they save them. This poor matted dog has been stuck in the woods for 6 months and nobody's fed it, and they get it. And next thing I know, I'm watching go from this matted thing to this shiny dog going, okay, now who wants to adopt him or her? And all of a sudden, you've got 11,000 people saying, I'll take him. That's a transformation. Oprah was famous for her transformations, whether about her weight, about the way people looked, about the way they saw the world. And so those are great examples of people who will tell you, here's how you make a transformation. It's about knowledge, but it's also about the experience. And so I'm probably going too long on that, but that's what I would give you as the example.
Right.
It's a longer discussion. So, but I will also tell you, the more days you have with people, the easier it is. At the end of what I found, this comes from research, and this is with young people. When I use the first program I offered was 5 days, 4 nights. And what I learned is on the 4th night, and this is true even for adults, people get crazy. If they're away, the 4th night is when stuff happens, good and bad. Because guess what? They've gone through this arc of transformation with other people. They've got comfortable. They now are at the point where they're tired, and that's the other secret. Is the easiest way to make transformation happen: keep people up late and get them up early, because you wear them down. That's why the military works so well. You are exhausted, and what happens? Then they can slip information in. That's how transformation happens at that level. Lots of leadership programs do the same thing. Let's keep you up and then get you up early, and guess what? We wear down the resistance and we slip in our message, and boom, you leave. And it doesn't work for everybody. And for some people, they give up in between because they need rest, things like that. So that's one way. Let me go on. The other thing I'll tell you too, what helps that transformation is the venue you pick. Now, remember when I said one of the concerns is people say, oh my God, I don't want to spend so much money on a site because it costs so much. Well, let me tell you, I've used every one of these sites. So I have used a hotel. Nothing wrong with it, except it's sterile, boring. I don't know who designs these things, but man, if they would listen to us, we could tell you how to make a great room for a speech or for a banquet or for a retreat, instead of just a conference where we're sitting in chairs. The down below, that is nothing more than a room, open space. I brought in chairs. I decorated the walls. Up in the left, that's a great loft in San Diego. Oh my God. If I had to pick 5 rooms in the world that were perfect for me, this is in the top 5, because look at all the light that comes in. You can see the flip chart in the back. This was a great room for 60 people. Great session we had there. If you look down to the lower right, my side, that little library with the leather couch seats, write this down. If you are looking for a great place, this is the library at the Iron Horse Hotel in Milwaukee. It is right next to Harley Davidson. And I have had probably 6 or 7 different executive retreats in this room because there's a fireplace in there. We had dinner. There's a long table in the back. It's a library, but it's a great venue. Above that, that is a place called Skyfall. It's a hoity-toity house. It was an Airbnb. Had a great event there. Above that is the meeting room at Torrey Pines. I forget the hotel that's there, but there you go. And then above in the center, that's the Skyfall other version. That's nothing more than a living room. So the venues need to match what you're trying to get. A transformation takes place a lot easier in a library or in a loft or in a hideaway retreat center. Doesn't mean it can't happen in a ballroom. It just, is it aligned with what you're trying to get across? And what I'll tell you is, if you're starting to create your own signature event and you're starting out and you don't want to take a whole lot of big risks money-wise, Airbnbs, VRBOs. Now, granted, you can have you have a limited number of people that'll let you do it, but they are wonderful because part of the experience is cooking. Part of the experience is sitting around taking a break out on the patio. Part of the experience is, guess what? We're going to make this a learning experience by each one of you being responsible for cooking dinner, making a snack. So the venue you pick should match what you're trying to achieve. Okay. Airbnbs, VRBO, yeah. Those are the first places I always look for smaller groups. And there's some great places. The challenge right now is they're getting more expensive because people are avoiding hotels. My question is, the plan beforehand is what the people, or I take that back. Not having a plan beforehand is how you lose money, how you don't have a great event, how you walk away going, I'm never going to do that again. And so whenever I'm putting on a signature event, I have to decide, how much money do I want to make? How many people need to be there? And it's simply saying, look, your plan is this. And what I've given you right here or shared with you are some of the things I consider when I put on a signature event. How many people do I want there? What's the ideal number? And the ideal number is more than the break-even number for the site, because I want to take money. I want to make money. I don't want to just do it out of the goodness of my heart. What's the problem we're going to solve? Transformation promise, the budget, date, type of event. So those are some components. Let me show you how it works in real life. For you CSPs who have gone to the CSP Summit, let's use them as an example. That's a signature event for NSA, isn't it? What's their target audience? CSPs. The ideal number? I think it's 150 now, but if not, they're aiming for 100, 125. What's the problem they solve? I think it's getting, having better business strategies. You walk away, if you don't have a strategy, or if you're having a challenge in your business, we're going to share amongst each other our strategies. What's the transformation promise? I don't know what it is. I think it's just your business is going to be better. What's the investment? $1,500, easy, because you got your travel, your lodging, and your registration fees. When do they do it? They do it during the downtime for a lot of people, December. I don't know if that's on purpose or just they decide this is a time where our members will probably have more time and willing to do it, even though it's close to Christmas. What type of event is it? It's a hybrid. And what I mean by hybrid is you don't just sit there and listen to speakers. You are actually doing work in groups. The staff, they use facilitators, us. Well, not me. And whoever is running it, do me a favor, tell them I'd like to be a facilitator. They never get, I don't know how you get asked, but I would love to work with my peers. The last thing is, where is it? It changes. Last year it was in Florida last year? Yeah, and this year I have no idea. I'm not sure if they've announced. Oh, they did announce it, but it changes.
It's in Florida.
Yeah. So you and I know NSA has a strategy when it comes to putting on the summit or the CSP summit. Yeah. And what you need to think about is, what's your strategy? You're going to put on a signature event. Great. Where does it fit in your business model? You can't just say, let's do this. make sure it fits in your business model. So let me show you what I mean by that. Oh, forget this marketing and promotion because we're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but here are 4 key components. And this is important, but I don't have time to talk about it in this session. But there are 4 things I want you to think about when it comes to marketing and promotion. One is the great thing about signature events, it positions you as a thought leader. The minute I put on my signature events, guess what? I am in control of Norm Hull and Associates. Someone says, oh my God, he's putting on that event and it addresses a problem that's not being addressed over here with this particular association or group. And guess what happens? They think I know more than they do, which in some cases could be true or not. The other thing is I could be a disruptor. I am rocking the marketplace. Why? Because we're talking about AI as it relates to minority worlds, blah, 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 blah. Well, they're not thinking that way. So now I have changed what or how we view my perspective. Or my question is, if I put on a leadership conference, what's going to make me be different than what is already out there? If I'm being compared to other leadership conferences, that's a tough nut to crack. And so what I would encourage you all to think about is, how do you zag when everyone's going this way? So right now, somebody should be working on a workshop that says, how do we make sure AI doesn't create lousy speeches? How to avoid that, how to recognize that as a meeting planner. Boom. Oh, great. That's something we want to make sure when we start looking at who to decide to bring in. The other thing is, the more specialized you are, the easier it is to find your right audience. I am working with executives in the addiction and recovery market. It's called the substance users disorder market now. But I am only working with the CEOs in that market because it's lonely at the top for them. And it makes it a lot easier for me to find my audience and to tailor my message for them. So when I say we're going to do a forum for you, it isn't for everybody. We take Vistage. Vistage is an example of, hey, we're taking all the CEOs. We're going to teach generic stuff. We're going to talk about blah, 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 blah. Well, that's great. I don't want to compete with them. So for me, the more specialized you are, the easier it is for you to find your space. The other thing is, at the end, try to be unique, and we can talk about that a little bit later. Here's what I want you all to think about. I want you to think about your tentpole strategy, because remember, this piece is about strategy. When I put on an event, and it's a signature event, it's because it needs to fit into my business model. So we're going to use NSA. I hope they don't get mad at me for using them, but we all know them. So if we were to look at their tentpole strategy, and a tentpole is what's holding up the organization. A tentpole is what holds up the circus. Remember, if you went to a circus, there were a couple of big poles under a tent, and there's some smaller ones, but it was these 3 or 4 poles that created the space for the elephants and the tigers and the clowns. And so those were the most important poles, because if they came down, the tent comes down. Well, in NSA, let's take what I think are their tentpole events. Thrive, which takes place in the spring or late winter, depending on where you live. And so that is one of their big events, right? The next event is Influence during the summer. And then the third one is the CSP Summit. So if you were to look at their cash flow or their connection to members, they've got a flow. Now, the other piece is their membership dues, or our membership dues. That happens all year, depending on when you signed up. So that's how they stay in business, or we stay in business, or support each other, or provide. That's their tentpole strategy. Those 3 big events: Thrive, Influence, and the Summit. They probably could do another one. And who knows what will happen in the future. Now, let's go one step further. This is my tentpole strategy. This is how I work. I know my slow months were January, around April, and then July, and then December. And so when I said I'm going to put on my events, I looked at the openings in my schedule or the cash flow and said, this is where I want to do something. Why? So I have a consistent flow through the year. Does it happen all the time? No, the pandemic kind of jacked up some of that, but I think I did better than a lot of people based on the way my business model is. And so if you were to look at this, what you'll see is I have something called encore events. It's where I see my clients in the month of January. They can have me come revisit them for a fee, of course. The orange mics, obviously, those are when I'm giving speeches. And this isn't a reflection of how many I give. It's just I've got speeches throughout the year. I've got a new program, as I just mentioned. It is for the CEOs of the substance user disorder organizations. And it is a mastermind type kind of program where we'll meet consistently. So that is spread throughout my year. My signature event, my big one, is in July. Happens every year almost, same time as NSA. So that's why I don't go to influences, because I can make 4 months worth, 6 months worth of income from that event. So yeah, NSA, I love influence, but the vault is a wonderful thing while I'm doing this. I've also planned, if you see, events during what would typically be a slow time for me. That's how I've taken this tentpole strategy and said, I need 3 or 4 events to sustain me if I get a gig or not. I will tell you, at this stage of life, I don't need to get on another plane. I enjoy good conversations with great people, thinking deep. And so instead of just being able to catch a flight and give a speech and then have to leave, I've created events so that I have more time to spend with my clients, which, if you think about it, it then creates long-term consulting contracts for some of them, depending on who they are. Does this make sense to you? Do you see the strategy? Any questions about this? Because if you are looking at your speaking business, we all know summer, oh my God, we don't get as much as okay, great. You know you're not getting a lot during the summer. So what are you doing right before summer or in the middle of summer or at the end of summer, instead of just hoping you make enough in the spring to coast through or save? That's the way I look at this.
Norm, can you speak to the topic? So you mentioned the substance abuse. Can you speak to what are the other topics that you speak on at your other events, and the size of the people of the groups for these events?
Yeah. I'm in the travel industry, travel management and travel group trips, travel trips. So there are operators, people who take people on trips. And so that is one market where I teach them how to create an incredible experience with their clients. So that is one market. The other market that I'm spending more time in and getting probably to a place where it may take more energy is working with boards to help them create strategic plans and to get the proper board members. And so every board usually has to plan strategically, recruit board members, create this plan that they implement. And then the great thing about this is every 3 years, they have to redo it. And so for me, it's a way to build return clients and long-term clients. And so the SUD market, on one hand, has created an offshoot of that where I talk to the CEOs, they all have boards. Most of the nonprofits, they all have boards. So it's kind of an offshoot of that where I talk to them. They say, oh, I got a board. Oh, we're having a retreat and I need some. Well, I do that. Oh, great. I know you. So that's the 4 places: the travel, the SUDS, the student leadership market is where I started. And then the spending more time in the board area and the SUD area, which is kind of a combination. I will tell you the place I'm looking for, exploring now also is the catering industry, because I owned a restaurant. And the reason why I'm picking that one is because I love food. They have it in great high-end places. I also think I can add something about the experience, not just the food. And so one of the talents I have is helping groups move from here to here by the activities I do, the experiences I do. And I think a lot of times caterers deliver the food, but they don't create an experience around the food. And I think that could be a value added. So we'll see. Does that answer the question? Close to it? Give you some.
And then number of people at a time at each of these events, Norm?
The SUDS, we limit the masterminds to 12 people. The retreats are usually whatever a board is. The travel is, they have an association, so that's a conference. And then if I do a specialized event, that would probably be 30 people. The student leadership, that's hundreds of people. What's the other one? What am I missing? It ranges. It goes all over. As I said earlier, I get bored. So the hardest audience I have is less than 5. That is the hardest one for me because it's all on me. So if I can get a larger, the perfect audience for me is, I like 95 people, something like that, depending on what it is we're talking about. And then for conferences, I'm usually a facilitator in the background while I have other people running it for me. And you can ask me more later on if you want to.
Yep.
I can. All right. So here's the next thing I want you to think about, because this is the most important part for you. What's the return on investment? That's what we always hear. I want you to redefine that, because guess what? It isn't always about the money. The money is important, but I will tell you, for me, it is the independence. It is being able to say, I don't want to take that job. How many of you have ever taken a job that you didn't want? You took that speaking gig, or you offered a price that you know you shouldn't have, but you needed the money, or you wanted to get out there, or it was going to be a great marketing opportunity. You got there and you're going, oh, shoot, I should have charged them triple for this. You want to be able to get to a place where you're independent enough to say, no, I'm sorry, let me send my friend over here. And then the other thing is your intellect. How many times have you been, your talent hasn't been valued? One of the reasons I will tell you I started lots of my events is because I did not feel seen. I did not feel appreciated. I didn't think anyone valued what I had to say. So the best thing I thought was, don't get angry, show them what they missed. So when you put on your event and it addresses a problem, provides a solution, creates a transformation, somebody looks at you in a different light and says, oh my God, how do we blow that one? And right now, the world is valuing talent. Those of us who used to work by hour pay have realized, you know what, I'm worth more than that person thinks I am. And so for the last couple of years, you have seen talent say, no, I want to stay at home. It isn't worth it to come back in the office. There's a shift that's taken place where people now see how valuable they are, but also how their bosses didn't value them as much as they said they did. So anyway, recognizing your own interests. I know, guess what? Nobody's going to be more worried about Norm than Norm. So one of the things I always want to do is take care of me and my family and my friends and animals. So that's my return. And then the last thing is, you want dollars back. I used to own a restaurant, loved it, but guess what? I would never do it again because the return on the money I spent didn't make sense. It was a great experience. I can check it off my list, but one of the things to keep in mind is all these ROIs when you're putting it on your event. And then here's the other thing I'll tell you, and we should probably save this to the end. At the end, if you are interested in creating your own signature event, here's what I'm going to let you think about. You and I will work together and we will create your event. We will look and say, based on what you're talking about, who you want to serve, at the end of this, if you're interested in this, there's an application I'll make available. You fill it out. You and I will have a conversation. If this makes sense for you, we can work together. We're going to do it over the summer. It's going to be a simple master class where we're going to do like this. And there may be an in-person, because I love in-person things. But my goal is to find 24 of you, so you all end up with a signature event. And then you talk a whole lot of great stuff about me. More importantly, you are in a place where if you get a call for something that's less than your fee, or someone doesn't like what you're saying, or they don't get you, you're okay, because guess what? Your event will help put you on the map. So we can put this at the end if you want, but just know at the end, you'll get a chance to take all this. The other thing I want you to think about is, what is your dream? What is your unimaginable experience that you could see taking place if you put on your own event? What does it free you up to do? I wish I could sing. I'm in a band. I sing. I don't sing well, but I'm in a band. Somewhere out there, there's a video of me singing. We're playing in New York this summer at the Hard Rock Cafe. It is something I never imagined, but it happened because of working from one of my events and somebody saying, look, we got a band together. Would you like to be the front man? I'm like, sure. And all of a sudden now, would you like to sing a song? Sure. So that's an experience I never thought I would have, but it came from a signature event. The other thing is, guess what? I'm an artist. I hate to, it's so hard to say, but they're going to use a piece of my art as the t-shirt for the event. You know, one of the things about creating your event is you get to control everything. What do you give away? What do they wear? What do we talk about? Do we go late into the night? Do we take an hour and a half in the middle of the day and all go get coffee and talk about informally something? One of the great things about a signature event is if it goes really well and you make good money, it frees you up for your unimaginable experiences that nurture you. At this stage of my life, I will tell you, there are more days behind me than in front, so everything is important. One of the benefits about this is you are in control. I am never going to have somebody say, we're not using you again. And I hope that is something that comes true for you, where you control your destiny. The other benefit I will tell you about this, spend more time painting, but more importantly, the guy in the middle, that's my dad. For 7 years, we took care of him. I was his caregiver. I didn't have to catch a plane every day. I was able to, we were able to make sure his last 7 years were great years. If you've ever seen any of my Facebook posts, you know he was more popular than me. All my friends would sit there and go, I love your dad's smile. And we would go get coffee. I got him hooked on Starbucks, and he would call it Starbuck, which is so funny. But man, those last 7 years, I will tell you, were a gift. And I was lucky because I could spend more time at home because I didn't have to be chasing a gig. I didn't have to be pushing that rock up a hill, hoping somebody picked me. And that's because of those events. And so I don't know what your benefits are, but do me a favor, because you can listen to all of this. The thing that will drive you will be the benefits and your unimaginable dreams in the chat right now. Take 30 seconds and put what is a benefit you would love to have as a result of doing your own event. What is that dream you wish would take place? I can tell you right now, another one of mine is having a great big plot of land. We already had the plot of land, but having a place where every dog that gets dumped has a place. We find them on the street, we bring them, we shave them, we wash them, we find a place for them. If not, they stay here. Guess what? That's a dream. I'm not sure it's going to happen, but I know every time I put on an event, it's in the back of my head. What do I get as a result of this being successful? So in that chat, what is your benefit? Okay. And then the last thing I have for you is, what is your signature event that's waiting to be created? What is it you wish you could do? What is it that would just float your boat? What would be your legacy? What would be something you can point at and go, that's mine? One of the great things about the restaurant was I could walk by it and say, yeah, that place is ours. I could bring clients to the restaurant. It was a tangible place. Because, you know, as speakers, all we have is our words and a book, maybe. So having something tangible was always important for me, because I wanted to be able to say, yeah, that's mine over there. And so for you, what is the signature event you're waiting to create? If you are interested in working with me or working together to create it and whatever, there is an application I think I can put. I'm going to close this. You're still there, right? Anybody there?
We're here.
Okay.
Here.
We're here.
I thought I just hung up on everybody. There is an application that I'm going to put, I think I'm going to put in the chat.
If you have a link, that would be great.
Right there. I think it's in there. You just fill it out and we'll have a conversation and we'll see if we can work together and this works for you. But I just want you to understand, I will always say to my peers, it is better to be in charge of your destiny, your career. It is better to be an owner. It is better to not let your future be determined by some meeting planners who don't see the value or your talent or your video wasn't good enough or your material or you're not the flavor of the month or you've got too much gray hair. So what I know is my own events help create that opportunity for them to see me in a different light. And if they don't, that's okay. I've made my own table. I brought my own seat. And every one of you can do that. It doesn't have to be on a scale of 500 people. It can be on a scale of 30. And you can do coaching. You can do special programs. You can all do it. And so I just want to encourage you to share your word, your talent, not just from the stage, but in the venues that work for you. And with that, I'm open to questions.
Outstanding. If you want to raise your digital hand, if you have a question for Norm, I know there are still a few kind of lingering back from some of the comments earlier. You know, just thinking about Norm, what's the difference between motivational, inspirational, and transformational?
Motivate, you mean?
In terms of the experience that you want to create for your attendee, right? When you were asking us if we want results, if we want transformation,
Sure.
right? Those options.
Well, here's what I'll tell you. For the corporate world, business world, they focus on results. So if you're going to put on an event and you want a business to pay for it, somebody that I got to get my boss to pay for it, that person's going to need to say to their boss, here's what I will come back with. I will be a better manager. I will be able to get more customers. Our marketing will be, they're looking for results. What I found is for the experiences, that is usually an entrepreneur, that is an independent person, that is a group that is looking for their people to feel something. So for offsites, I've done Taco Bell, their headquarters, I did an offsite for them. It was about, I want them all to feel like they're one team. And I'll tell you a quick story about that. Taco Bell is based in Irvine out here. I get a call, quick story. The person who called me, she was on my staff 45 years ago. She grew up. She's working in Taco Bell. Says, hey, my boss wants to do an offsite. I suggested you. I'm like, really? I go and talk to the boss, Jane Ganaway. And she says, well, it's an offsite. What can you do? I said, well, I would do a drum circle. We could do a ropes course. We could do a personality profile. We could do this. I mean, there's all kinds of things. We could do a bonfire at night. We could do a wine tasting. And she said, great. I said, okay, which one? She said, all of it in one day. And I said, okay, all of it. They're going to start in the morning and be there till night. She said, yep. I said, okay. I will tell you, it was great on one end, my end, because all the people I could bring in and stuff. But I will tell you on their end, it was overkill. Some of them were done by dinner. Some of them were done by lunchtime. And so what I found out was the boss, she was leaving. She had to spend the budget. She wanted to make sure it was on her people. And when it was over, she loved me. The people loved the day, certain parts of the day. But the most important part was some people were smarter because they learned about their personalities. So the results for them were they now knew how to treat somebody. Some people loved the drum circle. That was an experience they've never had. They took that away. And some people, just the fact that they could see their working people, their other departments as regular people, they now, instead of that was that department over here, the transformation that took place was, oh, they're just like us, just over there. And we all worked for Taco Bell. So that all took place in one day. By design, yes and no. There was no guarantee of what I could provide for each particular group, but there were different pieces of it. So when I say transformational, it is usually more about the personal stuff. The results are usually about the business stuff. But if you can mix all of them in, the great thing is people rave about you when they say, oh, I learned all this stuff and man, I had a great time. Oh, I made some great connections. And that usually happens in industries where people have to interact with the public. The travel industry is a great example. They want results, but also people have to like the trip or the people who organize the trip or the places they go. If they don't, it's just going from place to place, looking, and nothing personal to develop them. And so I would tell you, business gets you the results. It also probably, you can charge a lot more because it's business and it's not coming out of somebody's pocket. So did that answer the question close enough, or?
I think so.
Okay.
What other questions do we have for Norm? We talked very briefly about venues, themes. We also talked very briefly about marketing, how you actually get butts in seats, Norm,
Yeah.
which seems like the scariest part for most of us who are thinking about throwing our first event.
Well, I think the thing you have to think about is who's your audience? And this is like a speech. Who's your audience? So if I wanted to talk about a great travel experience, I'm going to where they are. They're going, there's a powwow. There's lots of association conferences, events. So my thing is, how do I get in with them and offer a workshop that showcases what I think is their challenge that they're not addressing? And so the best thing is find out where, and find out where your audience hangs out. Whoever you want to attract to your particular signature event, you've got to go where they are, or you've got to write an article that just blows the lid off something that's the sacred cow, but from a different perspective. You've got to get to a place where someone says, "Ooh, I like the way you think," or I've never thought of it that way. And what I found is there are plenty of associations for pretty much any audience you're chasing. You just have to be willing to do the work. One of the things we tend to do is, if I put up Facebook ads, I'm going to get all these people to show up. I don't know about you, but I just cruise by Facebook when I'm on it because there's just ads. Occasionally I'll find something I like, but the way I've found that's worked for me is the people I want to come to my events, I go find out where they're hanging out and then get my way in their door. I did one board retreat where I did their strategic planning, and the executive director is the one who recommended me to all these other people. And next thing I know, I'm getting calls about, come to our retreat. And I'm like, well, how'd you hear of me? Well, that guy that over there said you did his and did a great job. And so now I've expanded my reach by looking at their national association. And that person who brought me in the first time, we're going to do a national plan where he's going to market the CEO mastermind thing for everybody, which would be great if it works out, but it's scary because it means I lose a lot of time. So I have to figure out what I really want with that group. But I always tend to say, go where people are. And then the other thing is, when you give a speech, leave your stuff and say, hey, let me tell you about one of the things I also do. One of the things I also do besides this is I found, because it's personally rewarding, it allows me to go deeper with my clients. I realize it's a need that is not being met. And of course, you just lightly touch on it and people will come up after and say, hey, what were you talking about that? And then that's your chance to talk about what it is you want to do. What I would encourage you to think about is there's something called the information marketing world. And that's where, somebody gets up on stage, they talk about how to be a better mate and buy my $999 program. And it's this and this and this. And everybody at this conference is going to hear 7 different people make pitches about their particular expertise. Those people are into personal development. They're usually entrepreneurs. Depending on what it is you're thinking about doing, that's a place to go see and watch and learn. One of the great things about, and I'll really shut up, one of the great things about putting on events is each one of you has an opportunity to learn for free. Somebody hires you to speak. When you go to the event, look at the registration desk, what's working. Look at the room, is it set up right? Look at lunch, did they do it poorly? Was it a great lunch? Look at the schedule. Did they do it in a way that it flowed? Look at who they brought in. How did they start the conference? Instead of just showing up and just doing your piece, I always go as early as I can. I take more notes about everything because guess what? If it's working here, can I make it work over for this event here? I call it being an intelligence officer. Your job is to get as much information about this event as you can, and you get it for free, or they're paying you to speak. And so that's one way to increase your expertise and your learning curve. Just real quick, because we are all speakers hired to go and provide a service at a conference or an event. And so we're just throwing another set of eyes that says, look around, what is it that they did well, or I don't like, or they don't see that. And if something isn't working well, it's a great opportunity for you to say, hey, one of the things I noticed is this didn't go well. And here's my suggestion. I'm not sure if you want to hear it, but I speak all over the world or country, and this is what I found has worked. So now instead of talking about, oh, you did it wrong, it's like, let me share my expertise with you.
Mm. Well, Norm, we are getting close to close, and I just want to make sure that everyone can give their feedback. If you don't mind, would you please take a picture of this QR code? Norm, what do they get with this giving feedback on this signature talk of yours?
I don't know. What do you want? What do you want? I can give you the slides. How's that? I'll give you the slides, and if we can have a conversation. I don't mind talking with you, or if you're interested in working in the program I'm going to offer to Black NSA members, I will share that with you. But I'm looking for 24 people to be my guinea pigs at a ridiculously low investment fee, so we can talk about the power of signature events. And as people of color, I want us to be on platforms everywhere and people coming to us and not just us going to them. So I'll give you the slides and invite you to have a conversation with me, and anything else you want. I don't need a giveaway. You can call me anytime you want anyway. So just so you know that.
And I've also put the link in. If you're having trouble with the QR code, you can just tap on the link in the chat to give Norm your feedback on how awesome this session was. And, this is just one more event that Black NSA and also the $1 Million Mastermind host. Norm, thank you so much for dedicating your time.
My pleasure.
When you could be on the links playing an awesome round of golf. So
tomorrow, 12:10, I will be there.
Thank you for taking time out of your busy $1 million schedule to impart your wisdom to the rest of us. I know I'm encouraged to host my own events and expand the content, that we have, really just expanding it so that people get to talk about and interact with our content, not just in a 45-minute keynote window, but really immerse themselves in our content. And thank you for illuminating that for all of us, that we really have great content to share. Thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic